Hello again. It's September 2nd, the afternoon of Labor Day 2024, and this pile of hazelnut shell or husks on the ground tells me that it's time to pick hazelnuts, and in this case it's beyond time because they're all gone from the bushes. I haven't made a video in probably 3 weeks or more, but haven't had much to show in that time. You can see the aronia berries are just a little past their prime, but they hang onto the bush for a while. This is the only bush that I have in my whole garden that is ever bears fruit, because it's kind of hidden from the deer and it's right near the road, as you may have heard. So I will walk through. Since the last video, it's been really dry. Hasn't really rained appreciably in the last month. We've had a few rains, but nothing serious. And things are kind of winding down, getting dried out, a little crispy. Not severe drought, but not really great either on a drought-prone site like this. And so I really don't love this time of year. Kind of a bummer as summer winds down and you know that fall's coming, and there would be more things to harvest if the garden had done better in some aspects, but hasn't done that great in a lot of ways. Had no crops at all on several types of things and limited crops on a lot of other things, and have had a lot of losses to animals this year. A lot of real heavy deer browsing, pressure, groundhogs, rabbits, raccoons, the usual stuff. You may hear some goldfinches in the background. They've been coming and eating the cup plant seeds, and these are all pretty much gone. But earlier there were some over on these cup plants. You can see there's still very few flowers hanging on there, but they're pretty much done. So for the last month or so, cup plants have been looking really good. Here's one that's kind of a later one that's bloomed after it grew through the mulch there. So this is what they look like when they're a little bit, more in flower. Nice little fractal patterns. So as far as what's blooming, the goldenrods are coming on strong. New England asters would be if the deer hadn't annihilated them everywhere. There's a late little bit of echinacea there. The green-headed coneflower is kind of in full flower right now. These are kind of dopey looking flowers to me. They're not super attractive, but the bees are enjoying them. And this plant does have edible greens, which is a nice bonus in the springtime. And the pokeweed, that's pretty much done flowering and is setting fruit, so that's more good bird food. I don't do much with poke. I eat the greens in the springtime sometimes. That's about it. So I'm not going to go into this tangle over here, but there's a pawpaw, a cultivar pawpaw. There's a grafted Illinois everbearing mulberry. There's some plums beyond it there. There's a catalpa, a 9-bark, another pawpaw. So I'll just walk through. You can see this area looked really good a month or so ago, and now it doesn't look like much of anything. It looks like a bunch of dried up seed heads for the most part. There are some late sunflower type things that are still going. I have to figure out what that one there is. A little bit of anise hyssop still blossoming, which I love. Wanted to show these. Got a nice set of rose hips here on this wild native rose. Pretty good crop that hopefully the birds will enjoy, and hopefully they'll spread some of them around into the neighborhood, because this is a really cool native shrub, and I would love to see more of them around. So yeah, it's winding down here. Now there are things like apples and pears that are starting to fall, be ready, and have been with apples for a month or so. I've had some apples falling for that long. There's no peaches this year, no plums, I did have a few beach plums. I guess I'd be lying to say no plums, but they're not good. They don't taste good. And there was only a few of them. They're kind of small and bitter, sour. More echinacea, some goldenrod. Of course, you'll see lots of goldenrod probably. This cultivar autumn olive, the amber cultivar, barely has any fruit this year. There's just a very few kind of hanging in there. Some have already fallen onto the ground. I've been eating some off the ground actually. They're not hanging on the plant like they were last year. Last year was, I guess, a more favorable late summer season. You can see these kind of pink purple tinged grasses that look like little tumbleweed things. I hate those. They're pretty, but I really dislike them, having them around the landscape. Sorry for the noise in the background. So as we come up here, and sorry to be shooting this when there's pretty bright sunlight out. I was hoping it would be cloudier. It was a little cloudier earlier. This pear tree, I've shaken a few pears off there. I should pick some more off. They're probably about to the point where if you let them sit on the counter for a few days or a week or two, they will get better. These are some that I shook off a few days ago. So they've got their share of bug problems. Something came and nibbled on that one last night probably. Some of them actually were splitting like this from something to do with the weather. This is a Harrow sweet pear. I'm gonna have lots of nice signwood. For some reason it's got a lot of water sprout type stuff that happened this year. And as we look up, you'll see there's still some on there. But yeah, European pears, you generally pick them a couple weeks before they're soft and ripe on the tree, because by the time they ripen on the tree they turn to mush inside for the most part, which is not great. You have to eat them right then or they're just rotten. So this poor, I think this is stiff goldenrod or something. This thing's flopped all over. Maybe it's too dried out. What else? Oh, we've got still got some nice downy sunflower flowering. A lot of them have finished, but that's a nice cheerful sight in the garden. Should spread more of this stuff around. It grows waist high or so. That's about all. So yeah, you'll see lots of hazelnuts that are laden with the crop. Now these, because the husks are still pretty green and the nuts inside may not be turning dark yet and loosening up. Yeah, that one is dark. So this may be, if you had real heavy squirrel pressure, you could probably pick these. See if I can do this with one hand. The nut doesn't feel very loose in the husk, so it's probably could wait a little bit longer. But yeah, there's lots of hazelnuts. That's the main attraction, I would say, here in the fall right now. The chestnuts are really not bearing in any quantity to brag about. Speaking of chestnuts, there's a couple burrs on that tree, but I doubt they're pollinated, so we'll see when they fall. It's been teasing me for a few years now with empties. Here's a New England ash that's about to flower. It's inside of a cage, so the deer haven't got to it yet. They missed that one. But everywhere else they're clipped down to knee high or so. And so apples, you see a lot of them have fallen. The deer have eaten 99% of them. There's still quite a few in that tree. The trees are defoliated looking. There's a couple nice red apples up. I'm going to zoom in here. This tree, and that's a graft, because that tree is a Golden Delicious. And those are pretty good apples. I've had a couple of those. They have less damage than most other apples in this garden. So I may try to graft more of whatever that apple is, if I can ever figure it out. So over across the way there, I'm not going to walk over there, but we've got blackberries that are still ripening. They're kind of like everbearing blackberries. And stinging nettle going wild. I haven't done anything with my nursery this summer. I gave away a few plants earlier on, and that was about it. Nobody's been over, haven't given tours. You see deer shit everywhere here. Deer have been, and they're also pawing up my paths, the wood chip paths. So I'm not going to look at much with the nursery because there's really not much to look at. Well, I've got another groundhog buddy here that's doing some heavy excavating under my shed, trying to dig to China or something, which is pissing me off. so I'm gonna have to do something about that. The witness relocation program or something. So we'll walk through here. This nursery bed doesn't look too hot. There's a few things. I've had a chipmunk show up and screw some things up in there. I guess the theme this year has sort of been neglect and loss to wildlife. And I don't know, it was a really good year early on for rainfall. I was really thrilled about that. Here's a few grapes. These are, what do they call these? Fox grapes, sorry, brain dead. Most of those have been lost to disease or some other problems. So here, mostly just a bunch of crap. There's some goldenrod and some grasses, and still got a Rosa Sharon flowering there, that's nice. The Chinese tune tree put on some good growth this year because of all the moisture, and apparently the deer don't totally destroy that, which is cool. I do want to walk over, let's see. As of yesterday, I still had my 2 pawpaws on my one pawpaw tree over here. Here's a couple of garlic chives, or yeah, I think they're garlic chives flowering in my former herb spiral, which is now a hazelnut spiral. So yeah, you'll see some of this, probably the Canada goldenrod that's flowering there. Got a not nine bark, that's a nannyberry, and a few of those are getting ripe. We'll make a quick detour over here. There's really not much to show over here, and I have not mown over here. I've done some mowing in a couple places in the garden, but since I've not been giving any tours, I only mowed these paths maybe once or maybe twice this summer. Some kind of perennial sunflower. I don't think it's a sunchoke. Those are nice. So over here, where are we at? Get my bearings here. These trees were planted, I guess that one over there. Yeah, these are, I don't know, eight years in the ground or something probably, if I had to guess. And these aren't the biggest pawpaws in the world, but I'll take them. You know, that's definitely a decent size. And these came from, I think, Grant Schultz. So I'm gonna put some bags or something around these to keep them from falling on the ground, or raccoons or something from eating them. So I'm real excited. You know, probably within the next couple of weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks, those may those might be ready to eat. They're still pretty firm. Pawpaws do not ripen well off the tree, so I'm not gonna mess around with picking them early and then trying to ripen them on the counter or something. And I apologize for all the junk over here. This is a woodshed where the wood is so dry that it's probably petrified by now. But I do have a row of hazelnuts over here, and I started taking notes on these in the last year or two, and I feel probably over here that most of these have been stolen already by varmints. I'm not seeing a lot of nuts on the plants. And I've got this real annoying vine, whatever this is. It looks like something that's a cross between a buckwheat and morning glory. The flowers look kind of decidedly buckwheaty. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, if you don't watch out, it just grows out of nowhere and covers whole plants in a matter of weeks. So yeah, there were some decent hazelnuts over here. There was a couple from the Arbor Day program, and they were very late to come into bearing. And then there was some over there from New Forest Farm, and probably a couple other seed grown ones maybe, but they were nothing too special. And it looks like like I said, the mice or squirrels or whatever have gotten to them already. So as I walk through here, nothing too much to show here. There's a couple of late cut plants, another goldenrod, that might be stiff goldenrod, a couple of wild peas, late in bloom, a bunch of little blue stem grass growing up in the paths. Here we had a sumac that came down for some reason. I think they're just weak, brittle trees. They don't last long, and something knocked it over. So over here things are pretty dry in the old woodland understory. You got redbud trees that have kind of come in and taken over this little former shade garden, excuse me. And it looks like the deer killed off the Solomon seal that was there. And there's ground cover wise, there's poison ivy, looks like some woodbine, there's sweet woodruff, if I can talk. And that's what you see some of there. But yeah, it's mostly redbud. Redbuds are pretty weedy. I'm not really a huge fan of them. I mean, they are beautiful. I like to have them around, but they're pretty prolific reseeders. The catalpa coppice, if you can call it that, that's how that's looking. The shorter things that are like waist high, that's what we grew from the roots this year, and then the taller stuff's been there for a few years. And as we come around, there's more hazelnuts. Some of these are just coming into bearing. You know, the last year or two, there was never enough data to say one way or the other if they were good or not. Here we've got a stink bug that's going to sting some holes in the husk and ruin the nuts probably. That's a pretty big problem around here with the hazelnuts. I'm noticing more and more every year, more and more stink bug damage. So here we've got one. See the limbs are bent out with pretty good crop, so that's good. I'll probably harvest some hazelnuts, and I'll probably invite a few people over to harvest if they want to, because I'm not doing much with them and I don't plan to do a lot with them. So this bush typically has an impressive load. So yeah, we've got some big frilly clusters here. They usually bend down to the ground. I tried to whack some of this stuff that's growing around it to give it a little bit more sunlight because it was kind of getting shaded out a bit, and hopefully that helped. But it's not as big of a harvest as I've seen some other years. But yeah, once these husks are turning dark and splitting open, you know, you can see the nuts inside. If they come out in your finger, just like this one. Sorry for this bad filming. So it's not a huge nut. It's pretty small, typical size, but it's not a bad nut. It tastes pretty good. Here's a little pawpaw tree. So I'm going to go through the thicket here. Here's a graft I did later in the summer. It's healing up. I probably should come clip off some of this stuff that's underneath the graft to favor the new growth. And there's one I think from last year. And this is also one from this year. It's just, did it grow at all? Maybe one bud. Yeah, maybe it grew one bud, but not real promising. But sometimes you do multiple grafts on the same spot so that you get one that succeeds even if, you know, one fails or two fail. Yeah, nothing much great to show over here. There's some goldenrod. My favorite goldenrod, which is called showy goldenrod. There is some straight ahead there, like this stuff, but it's not quite in bloom yet. So you'll see the Canada goldenrod and some of the other ones, the stiff goldenrod. And so I did mow back here some, the main path, push mowing all this shit. I've had idiots driving back here. I don't know, I have to put the camera out and see who the fuck is coming back here, because I've had cars driving through my hedgerow and like driving over bushes and stuff, so I really need to put my camera out and catch whoever's doing that and put them on blast on Facebook or something, because that's really shitty. It's not a public highway. So as far as what's back here, the chestnuts, they're about the same as last year. I would say they're not bearing any heavier than they were last year. Don't know why, but doesn't look like it's going to be a bumper year for chestnuts. There'll be some, probably. Things are getting dry though. Got some kind of a late, I don't remember what this is. If that's, I have to look this up. Don't remember. It's pretty though. That's blooming late in the season here. I want to show this apple graft I did, God, I don't know how many years ago. It had two different grafts that took, and they've grown in a ridiculous way. I grafted way up high in branches, which I should not have done. But you can see they've been mostly bird food. This is a pretty nice apple. But the few that were on here have been eaten, pecked at, and ruined by birds. And this is what the typical apples on this tree looked like. They were just a seedling crab. So in here I've got some black locust. There's a chestnut behind it with a bunch of resprouting. Must have had some trunk damage or something. I don't know why it resprouted 12 times like that. And this one here has got some, that's just sprouting off the trunk. But trees at this size, they may start bearing a nut or two, but not necessarily. It kind of depends on genetic lottery. So this one here is about the same size. It's got a couple of burrs on there. Now whether those burrs have actual nuts in them, we don't know. But yeah, that's about the smallest I've seen them bearing. Sorry for the noise, Jesus. Asshole. So there we have another chestnut. This is a loser. Typically has lots of burrs, and the nuts are nothing special. They're small. This one's supposed to have more American genetics in it, but I don't really know about that, other than the small nuts. Not much to recommend it. It's faked me out many years. Here we've got some sprouting. Sometimes I leave these sprouts for the deer to munch on. But you can see some things are looking kind of drought stricken back here because I have not watered most of this stuff, or any of this stuff. Sumacs, all the seeds are setting. Now this must be maybe a male plant because it doesn't really have any seed heads on it. This one was one of the last flowers that came. There's a chestnut there, no nuts on that. Locusts have leaf miners, as they usually do, and they've also got the stem borers. So yeah, locusts can't hardly win here either. Hard to get anything to grow very well here. This is a chestnut here. That might bear in a year or two if we're lucky. There's a chestnut there that did bear, I think, 1 or 2 nuts last year. I need to cut some of this black locust crap out from around it so that it has more sunlight. So here we've got a gumi graft onto autumn olive, and we've got an Illinois everbearing mulberry graft onto wild mulberry, and some kind of a pear onto a wild pear. That was not a very good graft. That was done a few years ago. And then here, this tall tree in the center here, that is my timber chestnut, and it's growing away at an angle away from the tree line, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that's where kind of where the property ends. So these sticky burr things are really annoying. I guess the deer don't eat these. So this is a real nuisance to walk through. If you get this stuff, it sticks to everything. It's hard to get it out of your clothes. There are, I'm not sure if that's what those are, but there are, what do they call them? Something in the bean family. I'm blanking on the name now. Speaking of bean family, here is catalpa with some massive, majestic green beans. Too bad these things aren't edible. We'd be set for our green beans every year. Trefoil, that's what I was trying to think of. There's some like tick trefoil or something. They have sticky burrs like that on them, but the deer tend to eat those pretty ravenously. So this is a Chinese chestnut with multiple bad trunk problems. It has very few burrs on it this year, even fewer than last year, so I don't know what's going on there. I need to cut this black cherry down to give it more sunlight. The timber chestnut does have, let me come around out of the sunshine here. Still got the very tail end of ironweed flowering there. If you can go into the canopy here, we do have some burrs on the old timber here. So those are starting to fall. I've seen the first couple fall, but they had nuts inside that had problems. So I don't think the main crop is falling yet. Over here, we've got a couple of what oikos called Seguin chestnuts. They're not Seguin chestnuts. They're hybrids. They don't continuously flower. But there are, which one has it? So there's a few burrs on this one. I've got 4 trees out of 5 that I originally planted. And this one's like half dead with blight. That whole left side of it is dead. But there's only 1 or 2 that produce any burrs, which is strange. I don't know what's going on. So this one definitely is large enough to produce burrs. It doesn't. And same deal with this one here. It's probably the largest of any but it always has major leaf problems, so it's got some kind of genetic predisposition to problems. Either that or there's something going on very specifically with the soil right here, because its neighbors, which are siblings, they don't have that bad of a leaf problem. They've definitely have leaf issues, and there was a lot of bug or insect damage earlier on in the season, so the middle of the season's growth looks pretty ragged, but the end of the year stuff looks pretty good. But I wanted to show over here. So here are some winged sumacs in the foreground. These berries you can make a good pink tart lemonade out of. They don't have the annoying hairs that the staghorn sumacs have. Very, very tart and pretty good. Not very good to eat fresh because they're super tart. But here, this chinkapin chestnut. Sorry, my brain is not working today. That one looks like about a third of the tree now has died from blight. Now this is a multi-trunked tree, so it doesn't necessarily mean the whole thing's going to die, although it means it's got issues. So you can see this blighted stuff died during the growing season this year because otherwise it wouldn't have had leaves. You can see it's resprouting in the center there. So we'll just leave it. Whatever happens, happens. I don't really care. If it dies, it dies. If it's going to get blight, so be it. Maybe it'll send up new stuff, and that'll take a few years to get blight. Now, I do like having it for a pollinator for my other chinkapin over there. And here I want to show we've got canopy closure between these two different trees that are planted, at least 20 feet apart, 25 feet apart. So yeah, these chinkapins are getting some size to them. I bet you a lot of the ones on this tree are not pollinated. Historically, that's been the case. And the ones on this tree are much larger, and they do tend to get pollinated because they flower a little bit different times. And so one of them seems to catch, so this one gets caught better than the other one does. And you may see just a hint of a cool spiral pattern in these nuts or the burrs as they form. You can kind of see it like twisting around if you look carefully. It's more prominent at certain times of the year, or certain times of the growth cycle. But it looks like a good crop on this, decent crop anyway. So here's a chestnut that's been given a new lease on life with that cage. I'm sure before it was like kept down to a little stub about an inch out of the tree tube. And more sumacs. They are kind of attractive right now while those berries still look pretty fresh. And we've got there's a white birch there and a black cherry there. This swamp white oak is taking a year off. It doesn't have any acorns that I can see this year, so it's not a mast year for the oaks as far as I can tell. Got a few little seedlings here and there of chestnuts. That's one good thing. If you don't mow a lot, you get little happy surprises like that. So if they're growing in a place that doesn't really make sense to have another tree, they can always be dug up when they're small like that and given away to people. There's a persimmon, 2 persimmons that I grafted this year. There's a chestnut that's not doing too bad. I think it's got a lot of shit growing around it, so it's kind of kept the deer off of it a little bit. And here's a pecan that's never grown too well. That'd be a good grafting candidate. Another chestnut back there in front of the swamp white oak. And another pecan here. Something just bounded off. Oh, a rabbit. And then in here, this is I think this is a wintergreen holly. It's our native holly. It's a deciduous holly. And this one may be a male. They're male and female. Because it did have little weird inconspicuous flowers, but it doesn't have berries. So I do have a few more of those planted, even though they're more of a wetland species. I do have some, like 5 that I planted, probably 100 yards away from here, that are kind of still alive, amazingly, even though they've not been given the best of care. So I did mow a path through here. And I was kind of bragging earlier in the season about this apple that I grafted. Had so many fruit that I had to thin some off. Well, that didn't amount to anything. There's one up there still. The few that have fallen off are totally bug eaten or bird pecked or something. So nothing, no good fruit off of that yet. But maybe some year if I get lucky and get the lottery, the jackpot with just the right weather and conditions and lack of pests. So you can kind of see where I stopped mowing there. And I will walk around here. This apple's been able to grow a little bit better now because it's got the cage, so good for that. This pear, I trimmed a bunch of the top growth off, and it didn't grow that well this year, and it's still, I thought for sure it was going to heal over this wound this year, and it hasn't. So I think it's doing that just to spite me, because I was always talking about it and pointing it out. Here we've got some autumn olives. Not a huge autumn olive crop this year. A lot of plants have none. Autumn olives are pretty short-lived too. They don't seem to live more than a decade or so. They're still pretty tart. There's a chestnut tree, half-dead looking 9-bark bush. Some sad little chestnuts here that have been kind of ignored for years. And they were supposed to be a coppice. It's going to be a coppice plot. That hasn't really worked out. Another little chestnut there, white birch, some evergreens that I planted. These eastern red cedars are kind of closing up the canopy, not canopy, about to touch branches here. And I want to show this crazy ass, looks like a crab apple in my neighbor's yard. This thing is just wild with fruit. Let me zoom in here. It looks like it has no leaves. And it's all fruit. I mean, I guess there may be some leaves up top. But wow, what a crop on that thing. I'd like to, I don't know what they taste like anything, but I'd like to have a copy of that just for the sheer volume of fruit that it's producing. So, nice blue sky today. The temperature is pretty good. It's mid-70s, a little bit warm in the sun, but not at all unbearable. We have had some hot temperatures the last month or so. That's made working outdoors pretty uncomfortable, hot and humid. So here's a good chestnut, and I noticed yesterday that this has kind of a reddish tinge to the husks. See there? I don't know if it's going to come through on camera, but you know, you see some pretty fall colors sometimes on hazelnuts. Hopefully I didn't just call this a chestnut, it's a hazelnut. Pretty leaf colors. Husks usually are not anything too special, but yeah, these are pretty cool. There's I think that's a katydid, nice bright green. Hopefully it eats stink bugs, because man, stink bugs really do some damage to the hazelnut crop. I thought hazelnuts were kind of a bulletproof, you know, maybe the one thing that did pretty well consistently here, but now as time goes on, they do bear every year so far. I mean, that's definitely could change. There's a nice little butterfly. Nice, beautiful crop of these seeds, the winged sumac seeds. But, you know, there's more and more pest damage that's showing up. So I would say, you know, the jury's still out, because a lot of the things I planted are not up to bearing size yet. So like the oaks I've planted, you know, I see a few acorns on that one. I don't think I had any last year. They kind of tend to be variable. You know, you don't get big crops every year. On most oak species, you get every 3, 4, 5 years you get a good crop, and then very few in between. So yeah, the little blue stem is about up to my chest here. Could be picking tons of wild plums right now if there were any. That's a wild plum right there too. But like I said, the wild plum has been a no crop this year for some reason. Don't know what happened, but late frost or something, who knows. Over here, I don't know if we can see where, there's not much to show, but like right over there in the rear ground, there are, behind these tubes, those are the wintergreen, or not wintergreen, Michigan holly, the deciduous holly species. I'm sorry, fumbling for my words today. So yeah, I feel like this summer has been kind of a wash. I don't know, it felt good going into it, but it's gone by pretty quickly, and I've had some other projects pulling me in different directions. I've not done almost anything with this garden. Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the newer things I planted back here die, because I've not been giving them much care. I gave them a good mulching earlier in the season. I did not get back here and water them at all, which I don't think they really needed it up until the last month or so. But yeah, I kind of have a sort of a bummer feeling about the season. Here we've got some nice fruit on a red osier dogwood. Pretty fruit. Looks like it's defoliated by something. Maybe the deer eat the leaves off that. Huh. But birds love these white fruits. They're like little doll's eyes. That looks like it could be a candidate for grafting a gumi next year. I should remember that. And here's another autumn olive. You can see my soil here, so-called soil. Wherever the moles have disturbed it, it's pretty much just exposed sand. So it's a challenge to get things to grow here. I did mow back here some, and I mowed around these power poles because I don't want the power company coming through and annihilating everything and spraying everything just because they can. Yeah, some jackass recently drove across my hedgerow here, drove into this field and did like donuts or something, and then drove back out somewhere. And I've had people come drive here and then around and go somewhere. So that's pretty annoying. The catalpa's got pretty yellow leaves this time of year. Here's a little pile of scat. Maybe, I don't know, raccoon or something. I'm not sure. I'm not great at scat ID. Do have a few late knapweed flowers, which is, I guess, welcome. I've kind of stopped being at war with knapweed. It's not as big of an issue as it used to be here. So I did pull it for years. And I think I knocked it back somewhat, but it's also maybe found a balance of some sort. There are other things that are competing with it now, and it's not like a whole field of knapweed like it used to be. So the persimmons, let's look at these. This is what I'm most interested in, even more than the pawpaws. So these never really got any bigger than they were when I first showed them. They're still, not even golf ball size, maybe close to golf ball size. Still quite firm. Those are not going to be ready for quite a while. And you can see I put down some grass clippings here to be a cushion if these things fall, because otherwise they're going to go into the dewberries, which is like a goddamn nightmare of tiny slivers. Dewberries are just real annoying. So as these persimmons grow up, I'm going to start mowing back here. And I don't think I'll till, but I will definitely mow to get rid of the dewberry problem, so that's not the dominant ground cover, because I don't want to screw around with dewberries and getting slivers every time I reach down to the ground. That's a monarch. Oh, he flew away. Monarch or a viceroy. It looks kind of small. So my one other persimmon back here that is fruiting. I'm going to wrap this video up soon, sorry. The link. This one here, getting a little bit of color break on that. Still, that's pretty small. Smaller than golf ball, like maybe ping pong ball. But it's real exciting to see any fruit after 13 years or something of waiting. So yeah, that's super cool. I've got a groundnut vine. Oh, look at that. That one's got some damage. That's why it's got insect stings or something. But holy shit, an orange-ish persimmon. Now, persimmons are not ripe until they fall off the tree or can be shaken off the tree. So I need to get in here and mow or scythe or something to get the ground kind of cleared out and visible before those things start falling, because they're really not meant to be picked off the tree. And in this ground cover, I don't think that would be fun looking for them. So persimmon with groundnut, and these are some late dried up flowers of groundnut. Those look smaller than normal. I wonder why they're so small. Now my friend Kyle said that groundnut flowers are really fragrant, but I've never smelled any. And since he mentioned that, I keep smelling them. I'm not sure if it's something where my nose doesn't pick it up or something. As far as I know, I don't have any trouble with smell. But yeah, I've not smelled any groundnut flowers that I'm aware of, but I'll keep trying next year, maybe earlier in the season. So over here, the hedgerow, not doing too hot. I mean, I've thrown some mulch at it here and there, some wood chips and some bamboo that I cut down, things like that. But it's not growing great. Here's some bamboo crap that I put up to try to keep the deer out. I want to show more of this winged sumac, looking pretty good at this moment in time. And I've got another nice hazelnut bush here, pretty good crop, bending it down. So I will come around. I've got these things I do I have a clipboard I carry around, and I kind of give names to these things. Not a very good naming system, I will say, but just some kind of a name, and then note where it is. And I should be making metal tags that are permanent so that I don't forget or lose track of the names. This autumn's got a great crop on it. Probably not quite ripe. Damn, they're high up. And this hazelnut's got a pretty good crop. It's probably loving coexisting with that autumn because the autumn is fertilizing the ground. More stink bug buddies. Had some Japanese beetle visits earlier in the season. But yeah, you can see that the hazelnuts are pretty good. That's in terms of every year yield, the hazelnuts got to be the best thing so far. I'm hoping that chestnuts will kind of be similar, but I don't know yet. More downy sunflowers kind of fading out for the season with a little goldenrod mixed through. It's a dumb motorcycle day. I guess Labor Day and nice weather. A nice goldenrod there. Another good autumn olive bush here. This one's got good tasting berries. Love these. But yeah, I feel like the main thing in this garden this year, it's